The transport shuttle's engines hummed with a low, mechanical growl as it descended through the thick atmosphere of Korvac Prime. Inside the cramped passenger compartment, alien beings from dozens of different worlds sat in uncomfortable silence, all bound for the same destination, the Crimson Coliseum, the galaxy's most notorious gladiatorial arena. Maya Chen pressed her face against the small porthole, watching as the massive structure came into view. The Colosseum was a monument to violence, its blood-red walls stretching high into the purple sky. Carved into its surface were the faces of legendary fighters who had died within its walls, their expressions frozen in eternal agony or triumph. "First time?" asked a gravelly voice beside her. Maya turned to see a Krelian warrior, his scaled hide bearing the scars of countless battles. His forearms were crossed over his massive chest, and his reptilian eyes studied her with obvious amusement. "Yes," Maya replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The Krelian let out a harsh laugh that sounded like grinding stone. "Human female, young one at that. What crime did you commit to end up here?" Maya's fingers unconsciously moved to the small pendant hanging around her neck, a simple silver charm shaped like a lotus flower. It had been her grandmother's, the only thing she had left from Earth. "I defended my colony from raiders." "Defended?" The Krelian's laughter grew louder, drawing attention from other passengers. "And you failed so badly they sent you to the arena as punishment?" "No," Maya said quietly, still looking out the window. "I succeeded too well." The laughter died in the Krelian's throat. He studied her more carefully, noting the way she sat perfectly still, her breathing controlled and even. Most humans he had encountered were either trembling with fear or puffing up with false bravado by now. This one seemed almost peaceful. "What does that mean, little human?" Maya turned from the window and looked directly at him. For the first time, he noticed she was smiling. Not the desperate grin of someone trying to appear brave, but a genuine, warm smile that seemed completely out of place in their current situation. The raiders were Vorthak pirates. 300 of them attacked our farming settlement. We had maybe 50 people who could fight, most of them elderly colonists with hunting rifles. She paused, her smile never wavering. "I killed 237 of them. By myself." The Krelian's four eyes widened. Around them, other passengers had gone silent, straining to hear her words. "The Galactic Council decided that was excessive force," Maya continued. "They said I could have simply disabled their ships or found a non-lethal solution. When I pointed out that the pirates were already executing civilians when I engaged them, they said I should have tried harder to negotiate." A Zephyrian trader near the back of the shuttle snorted in disbelief. His blue skin was marked with the ceremonial tattoos of his merchant class, and his three-fingered hands gestured dismissively. "Impossible. One human against that many trained pirates? Your species barely qualifies as sentient, let alone capable of such feats." Maya's smile didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. "You're right to be skeptical. Most species in the galaxy have forgotten what desperation can drive someone to do. What love can make someone capable of." "Love?" The Zephyrian laughed, his high-pitched voice echoing in the cramped space. "What does love have to do with combat effectiveness?" "Everything," Maya said simply. "Those pirates weren't just attacking random targets. They were slavers. They had already taken my daughter." The shuttle fell completely silent except for the hum of the engines. Even the massive Thraxian mercenary who had been sleeping in the corner opened one of his 6 eyes to listen. "I tracked them for 3 days across the Kepler wastes," Maya continued, her voice taking on a distant quality. "When I found their camp, they had her in a cage with 40 other children from various worlds. The pirates were entertaining themselves with some of the older captives." The Krelian shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He had raided human settlements himself in his younger days, though he had never taken slaves. Pirates like the Vorthaks were considered dishonorable even among his warlike people. "I waited until nightfall and went in alone. I started with their sentries. Vorthaks have excellent hearing, but they rely too heavily on their technology. They never expected someone to use traditional stealth techniques." Maya's hand moved to her pendant again. My grandmother taught me to move like water, to strike like lightning, to endure like stone. Old Earth martial arts that most humans have forgotten. But 237 kills. The Zephyrian protested. That's a massacre, not a rescue mission. Maya's smile finally faded, replaced by an expression of cold determination. When I reached the center of their camp, I found what they had done to some of the children who had tried to escape. What they planned to do to the rest. She was quiet for a long moment. After that, I wasn't trying to rescue anyone anymore. I was making sure they could never hurt another child. The Krelian found himself leaning forward despite his better judgment. How did you kill so many? Vortak pirates are heavily armed and well-trained. I used everything, Maya replied. Their own weapons when I could take them. Improvised explosives made from their ship's power cells. Environmental hazards. But, mostly, I used the fact that they underestimated me. She gestured to herself. Small human female, clearly non-threatening. They never saw me coming until it was too late. And, your daughter? Asked a voice from the back. It was a selenite healer, her crystalline features reflecting the shuttle's interior lights. Did you save her? Maya's smile returned, but this time it held a note of sadness. Yes. All 43 children made it home safely. But, the Galactic Council decided that my methods were too extreme. They said I had violated 17 different interspecies treaties regarding proportional response and rules of engagement. The Zephyrian shook his head vigorously. The Council was right. You cannot simply slaughter your way through problems. Civilized beings must find peaceful solutions. Tell me, Maya said, turning to face him directly, do you have children? Yes. 3 offspring. And, if someone took them, tortured them, planned to sell them as slaves or worse, you would try to negotiate? You would worry about treaties and proportional response? The Zephyrian opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again. His blue skin had taken on a darker hue. I thought so, Maya said gently. The difference is, most species in the galaxy have never had to face the kind of desperation that humans live with every day. We're the newest members of the galactic community, the weakest militarily, the most scattered. When our children are threatened, we can't call for fleet support or diplomatic intervention. We have to handle things ourselves. The shuttle shuddered as it entered the Colosseum's docking bay. Through the portholes, they could see the massive crowds already gathering in the stands above. Thousands of beings from across the galaxy had come to watch the condemned fight for their lives. As they prepared to disembark, the Krelian studied Maya one more time. She had gone back to looking out the window, her expression peaceful once again. But, now he understood that the calm wasn't ignorance or acceptance. It was the stillness of a predator conserving energy before the hunt. What is your name, human? He asked. Maya Chen. And, you? Gorvok the Bone Crusher. I have fought in 17 different arenas across the galaxy. I have killed hundreds of opponents. He paused, then added quietly, I think you may be the most dangerous person on this shuttle. Maya's smile widened. Thank you. That's very kind. The shuttle's landing ramp extended with a hydraulic hiss, and the smell of the arena wafted in. It was a mixture of sand, sweat, blood, and fear that had soaked into the very stones over centuries of combat. The guards who boarded were a mix of different species, all wearing the distinctive black and red armor of the Colosseum's security force. Move along, fresh meat, barked the lead guard, a cybernetically enhanced Valantian whose natural 4 arms had been replaced with 6 mechanical ones. Time to process you lot. The prisoners filed out in single order. Maya ended up walking beside Gorvok, her small frame dwarfed by his massive bulk. Other passengers gave them a wide berth, though whether it was because of the Krelian's fearsome appearance or because word of Maya's story had spread, she couldn't tell. The processing center was a sterile, white-walled facility that felt more like a medical laboratory than a prison. The condemned were separated by species and led to different areas for evaluation. Maya found herself in a small room with 3 other humans, all of them male and all of them looking terrified.
Name, asked the bored-looking technician, an insectoid myrmidian whose compound eyes reflected the harsh overhead lighting. Maya Chen.
The technician's mandibles clicked as it consulted its data pad.
Crime, excessive force in defense of civilians.
Sentence, trial by combat, 3 matches minimum for consideration of commutation.
It looked up at her. Any special dietary requirements or medical conditions? No. Combat experience? Maya considered how to answer that. Some.
The technician made a note and gestured toward a door marked with symbols in a dozen different languages.
Follow the blue line to the holding area. Orientation begins in 1 hour.
The holding area was a large, circular room with cells arranged around the perimeter. Each cell was designed to accommodate a different type of being, with adjustable gravity, atmosphere, and temperature controls. Maya's cell was simple but adequate: a bed, a small table, basic sanitation facilities, and a view of the arena floor through a narrow window. She was examining the lock mechanism when the cell across from hers opened and Gorvok was escorted in. The Krelian cell was much larger and had been equipped with what looked like meditation stones and a small shrine. "They put us across from each other on purpose," he called out as soon as the guards left.
"It's psychological warfare.
They want us to study each other, to build fear or familiarity before we potentially face each other in combat." Maya settled onto her bed and pulled her knees up to her chest.
"Are you afraid of fighting me?"
Gorvok let out another of his grinding laughs, but this one sounded forced. "I am 3 times your size, have natural armor, and forearms to your 2.
My people have been warriors for 10,000 years. Why would I fear a small human female?"
"Because," Maya said, her voice carrying clearly across the narrow hallway between their cells, "you're smart enough to listen to that little voice in your head that's telling you something doesn't add up.
You've seen combat, real combat. You know that size and strength don't always determine the winner."
"True," Gorvok admitted.
"But experience usually does. And I have decades of it." Maya was quiet for a moment, then asked, "How many children have you killed?" The question hit Gorvok like a physical blow. He had expected her to ask about his combat techniques or his survival strategies, not that. "None," he said quietly. "I am a warrior, not a monster."
"Then, you've never fought someone with nothing left to lose," Maya replied. "You've never faced someone who would rather die than fail to protect what they love."
Before Gorvok could respond, the orientation chimes sounded throughout the facility.
A holographic display activated in the center of the holding area, showing the image of the arena's master of ceremonies, a flamboyantly dressed Altarian with golden skin and forearms. "Welcome, condemned souls, to the Crimson Colosseum," the hologram announced with theatrical flair. "You have been brought here to entertain the masses and, perhaps, if the gods smile upon you, to earn your freedom through glorious combat."
The display shifted to show a 3-dimensional map of the arena.
It was larger than Maya had expected, with multiple levels, hidden passages, and environmental hazards that could be activated during matches. "The rules are simple," the master of ceremonies continued.
"Survive 3 matches and your sentence may be commuted.
Impress the crowd and you may earn sponsors who will provide better equipment and medical care.
Die bravely and you will be remembered in the halls of the fallen."
Maya studied the arena layout carefully, noting the positions of weapon caches, trapdoors, and what appeared to be automated defense systems. It was designed to create maximum spectacle while giving skilled fighters multiple tactical options. "Your first matches will be individual combat against opponents chosen by our selection algorithm," the hologram explained. "Subsequent matches may include team events, survival challenges, or special themed competitions. The crowd's approval and your performance will determine your advancement through the tournament brackets." The display changed again, showing examples of previous champions. Most were large, heavily muscled beings from warrior races. Maya noticed that very few were human, and those that were had all been male and heavily augmented with cybernetic enhancements. "Medical care is provided between matches, but be aware that we cannot always repair everything," the announcement continued cheerfully. "Lost limbs can be replaced with mechanical alternatives, but lost lives are gone forever.
As the orientation continued, Maya found herself thinking about her daughter, Sarah.
The little girl would be 9 years old now, living with Maya's sister on New Shanghai Colony. She would be starting school, making friends, living the normal life that Maya had sacrificed everything to protect. The thought of never seeing Sarah again was almost enough to break through Maya's carefully maintained calm.
Almost.
But she had learned long ago that emotion could be a weapon if properly controlled, and a weakness if it was allowed to run free.
Tomorrow, the games begin, the hologram announced.
Rest well, warriors.
Many of you will not see another sunset.
As the orientation ended and the lights dimmed for the facility's night cycle, Maya lay on her narrow bed and stared up at the ceiling. She could hear other prisoners talking, crying, or praying in dozens of different languages.
Some were making desperate plans to escape.
Others were already accepting their deaths.
Maya did neither.
Instead, she began to plan. The arena was designed by beings who thought they understood violence. They had created a spectacle, a show where strength and brutality were rewarded. But Maya had learned a different kind of violence during those 3 days hunting the pirates who had taken her daughter. She had learned that the most effective weapon wasn't strength or speed or even skill.
It was the willingness to do whatever was necessary. Human, Gorvok's voice drifted across the hallway. Are you awake?
Yes.
Why are you not afraid?
Maya turned to look toward his cell, though she could only see shadows in the dim light.
Who says I'm not afraid?
You show no signs of it.
Your breathing is steady, your movements controlled. You act like someone who is confident of victory. I'm terrified, Maya admitted.
I'm afraid I'll die here and never see my daughter again. I'm afraid I'll fail and all those children I saved will think their rescuer was nothing special after all.
Then, why do you seem so calm? Maya was quiet for a long moment. Because fear is just information. It tells you that something important is at stake. The question is what you do with that information. And, what are you doing with it?
I'm using it, Maya said simply. Fear is making me remember why I'm here, why I fought so hard before, and why I'll fight even harder now. These games, this arena, it's all just another obstacle between me and getting home to my daughter. The odds are not in your favor, Gorvok pointed out gently.
Most fighters here are professionals, trained from birth for combat. You are.
I'm a mother, Maya finished. And that's the most dangerous thing anyone can be when their child's future is at stake. As the night cycle deepened and the sounds from the other cells gradually faded, Maya continued to stare at the ceiling. But she wasn't seeing the cold metal above her. She was seeing Sarah's face the last time they had said goodbye, the way the little girl had hugged her so tightly and made her promise to come home safe. Maya had kept that promise once, when the pirates took her daughter. She would keep it again, no matter what the arena threw at her. The guards had made a mistake when they brought her here. They thought they were throwing another victim to the wolves. What they had actually done was introduce an apex predator into their carefully controlled ecosystem. Tomorrow, the galaxy would begin to learn what humans were really capable of when they had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for.
Maya Chen smiled in the darkness and began to count the seconds until dawn.
The first rays of Korvac Prime's binary sun streamed through the narrow windows of the holding facility, casting strange double shadows across the floor. Maya had been awake for hours, moving through a series of gentle stretches and breathing exercises her grandmother had taught her decades ago on Earth. The other prisoners were just beginning to stir when the morning announcement echoed through the facility. First combat cycle begins in 1 hour.
Fighters designated for morning matches report to the equipment bay. Maya's name appeared on the holographic display along with 7 others.
She recognized Gorbok's name on the list, as well as that of the Zephyrian trader who had mocked her story on the shuttle. The others were unfamiliar: a Valdorian mercenary called Thex Ironhide, a cybernetically enhanced Nexian female designated as Unit 47, a massive Gordhack gladiator named Brutus Stormfist, a swift Kalari assassin called Whisperdeath, and something called the Hive Mind Fragment with no species designation listed. Looks like we both drew the opening matches, Gorvok called across the hallway as the guards began opening cells.
May the strongest survive.
Maya stood and gathered her few possessions, the lotus pendant and a small hair tie that had belonged to Sarah. Everything else had been confiscated during processing.
See you on the other side, Gorvok.
The equipment bay was a massive underground chamber filled with weapons and armor from every corner of the galaxy. Racks of energy weapons hummed with barely contained power next to ancient forged blades that had seen 1,000 battles. Armor sets ranged from high-tech exoskeletons to crude leather and metal combinations that looked like they had been salvaged from battlefields. Choose wisely, advised the armorer, an elderly Torthan whose shell was covered in scars. His 6 arms moved with practiced efficiency as he guided fighters to appropriate equipment.
Your life depends on making the right selection.
Most of the other fighters immediately gravitated toward the most impressive-looking gear. The Gorthak gladiator strapped on a powered exoskeleton that doubled his already impressive size.
The Nexian cyborg selected a plasma rifle with multiple targeting systems.
Whisperdeath chose twin vibroblades and lightweight stealth armor.
Maya walked past all of it.
Human female, the armorer called out, confused.
You must select equipment. The games begin soon.
I'm still looking, Maya replied, moving deeper into the equipment bay. She passed by energy shields that could stop starship weapons and personal force field generators that could deflect most small arms fire.
None of it felt right.
Finally, in the back corner, she found what she was looking for.
A simple wooden staff, about 5 feet long, made from some kind of dense hardwood. It was unpowered, unaugmented, and looked completely out of place among the high-tech weapons surrounding it. That?
The armorer's mandibles clicked in disbelief.
Human, that is a training weapon. It will not protect you against plasma fire or vibroblades. Maya lifted the staff, testing its weight and balance. It felt solid, reliable. It's perfect.
You will die in the first minute, Gorvok said from behind her. The Krelian had selected a traditional battle axe and ceremonial armor from his homeworld.
That stick will not save you. It's not supposed to save me, Maya replied, giving the staff an experimental spin. It's supposed to help me save myself. The other fighters exchanged glances that ranged from amusement to pity.
In their eyes, the small human female had just committed suicide through poor equipment choices.
Time to go, announced a guard captain, a 3-meter-tall draconian whose scales gleamed like polished obsidian.
The crowds are hungry for blood. They were escorted through a maze of tunnels toward the arena floor. The sound of the crowd grew louder with each step, a rhythmic chanting in dozens of different languages that merged into a primal roar of anticipation. Maya could feel the vibrations through the stone floor, thousands of beings stamping their feet or other appendages in unison.
Listen to that, breathed the Valdorian mercenary, Thex Ironhide. They want to see us die.
No, Maya corrected quietly.
They want to see us fight. Death is just a side effect they're willing to accept for entertainment.
Is there a difference? Asked the Nexian cyborg, her mechanical voice flat and emotionless.
All the difference in the world, Maya replied. People who want to see you die are enemies. People who want to see you fight are an audience. You can work with an audience.
Before anyone could ask what she meant, they reached the final staging area.
Through the gate ahead, Maya could see the arena floor bathed in harsh artificial sunlight. The sand had been raked smooth, and weapon caches were positioned at strategic points around the circular space. Above them, the crowd filled every seat in the massive coliseum. First match, announced the master of ceremonies, his amplified voice echoing throughout the arena. Individual combat, no restrictions, fight until one opponent yields or dies. In the red corner, representing the proud warrior tradition of Nexus Prime, Unit 47, the cybernetic slaughter. The cyborg stepped forward, her plasma rifle charging with an ominous whine. Her mechanical limbs reflected the arena lights as she raised her weapon in salute to the crowd. And, in the blue corner, the announcer continued, a human female convicted of excessive force in the defense of civilians, Maya Chen, the smiling executioner. Maya's eyebrows went up at the dramatic name, but she stepped through the gate with her staff held loosely in one hand. The crowd's roar was deafening, but she noticed something interesting: it wasn't entirely hostile.
There were some cheers mixed in with the bloodthirsty calls for violence. The arena floor was larger than it had appeared in the holographic display, roughly the size of a football field with walls that rose 30 meters on all sides. The weapon caches she had observed earlier contained mostly backup equipment, extra energy cells, basic melee weapons, medical supplies.
Combatants, prepare for battle, the announcer declared. This match begins, now.
The crowd fell silent for a heartbeat, then erupted as Unit 47 immediately raised her plasma rifle and fired. The energy bolt screamed across the arena, aimed directly at Maya's center mass.
Maya wasn't there anymore.
She had moved the instant the announcement finished, flowing to her left like water around a stone. The plasma bolt seared the air where she had been standing and blasted a crater in the arena wall. Unit 47 tracked her target and fired again, then again. Each shot came closer than the last as the cyborg's targeting systems learned Maya's movement patterns. But Maya wasn't following a pattern, she was responding to the subtle tells that preceded each shot. The way Unit 47's shoulder shifted a fraction before firing. The brief pause in her stride as she acquired a target lock. On the fourth shot, Maya changed direction abruptly and charged straight at the cyborg. Unit 47's targeting system calculated the new trajectory and predicted an intercept point. She fired twice more, the plasma bolts designed to bracket Maya's path and force her into a kill zone. Instead, Maya planted her staff in the sand and vaulted over both shots, her body horizontal to the ground as she sailed over the deadly energy beams. She landed rolling and came up running, closing the distance faster than Unit 47's systems had calculated possible. Impressive agility, the announcer called out, but she's still just carrying a stick against military-grade weaponry. Unit 47 switched to full automatic fire, her plasma rifle spitting bolts of superheated energy in a continuous stream.
Maya danced between them, the staff spinning in her hands to deflect any shots that came too close.
The wooden weapon should have been vaporized by the first contact with plasma fire, but somehow it held together.
The crowd was on its feet now, their initial bloodlust transforming into amazement.
Even the most experienced arenagoers had never seen anyone move like this. Maya flowed around the plasma fire like she was dancing, her expression calm and focused despite the deadly light show surrounding her. Unit 47's rifle overheated and automatically shut down for a cooling cycle. The cyborg drew a vibroblade from her belt and prepared for close combat. Her mechanical limbs gave her superhuman strength and speed, and the vibrating edge of her weapon could cut through most armor like paper.
Maya closed the final distance in 3 quick steps.
Unit 47 slashed with the vibroblade, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to strike faster than most organic beings could even see.
Maya's staff intercepted the blade with a sharp crack, deflecting it just enough to avoid a killing blow.
She spun the staff and struck the cyborg's wrist, numbing the mechanical limb and causing the vibroblade to drop to the sand. Unit 47 responded by grabbing for Maya with her other arm, intending to crush the human with her enhanced strength. Maya flowed under the grasping mechanical hand and struck upward with the end of her staff, driving it into the junction where Unit 47's cybernetic spine connected to her organic brain. There was a shower of sparks and the cyborg froze in place, her systems locked up by the precise strike to her neural interface.
"Yield," Maya said quietly.
"I cannot yield," Unit 47 replied, her voice distorted by static.
"My programming does not allow surrender." Maya nodded sadly. "I'm sorry." She struck again, this time targeting the power coupling for Unit 47's life support systems. The cyborg collapsed to the sand, her enhanced body shutting down as her organic components were cut off from the machines that sustained them. The arena fell completely silent. Maya knelt beside the fallen fighter and gently closed Unit 47's mechanical eyes.
She had been an opponent, but she had also been someone who was fighting for her own reasons, her own dreams of freedom or survival. "Winner, by technical knockout, Maya Chen," the announcer finally called out, his voice lacking its earlier theatrical flair. The crowd exploded into noise again, but this time it was different. There were more cheers than jeers, and Maya could hear beings of various species calling out questions about her fighting style and techniques. As she walked back toward the staging area, Maya caught sight of the VIP boxes where wealthy spectators and arena sponsors watched the matches in comfort. Most of the occupants were leaning forward, talking animatedly among themselves.
She had their attention now. "Incredible display," Gorvok said as Maya rejoined the other fighters. "I have never seen anyone move like that. What fighting style was that?"
"A little bit of everything," Maya replied, using her staff to lean against the wall. "Aikido, Kung Fu, some Filipino martial arts my grandmother learned from a friend. Things that were developed by people who couldn't rely on strength or reach to win fights."
"But how did you know where she would shoot?" asked Thex Ironhide.
The Valdorian's armor was dented and scorched. His match had apparently been much more conventional. "Same way I knew which way you would dodge when your opponent swung that warhammer at your head," Maya said with a slight smile.
"You watch. You listen.
Every fighter has tells, little signs that show what they're going to do before they do it. Most people are trained to ignore those signs and focus on the weapons or the obvious threats."
"And what if your opponent doesn't have tells?" asked Whisperdeath.
The Kalari assassin had won her match through speed and stealth, but Maya noticed she was favoring her left side. "Everyone has tells," Maya replied.
"The trick is learning to see them."
The second round of matches began an hour later. Maya watched as the other fighters faced new opponents, noting their techniques and weaknesses. Gorvok fought a Terran Marine who had been enhanced with combat drugs and military-grade cybernetics. The Krelian's forearms gave him an advantage in close combat, but the Marine's enhanced reflexes and powered armor made it an even match. In the end, Gorvok won through experience and cunning, using the arena's environmental hazards to trap his opponent in a position where his armor became a liability rather than an asset. "Smart fighting," Maya observed when he returned to the staging area.
"You used the environment as a weapon."
"As did you,"
Gorvok replied, accepting a cup of water from one of the medical attendants.
"That staff should have been destroyed by plasma fire, but you kept it intact by controlling exactly where the shots hit it."
Maya nodded.
"Wood is good at absorbing and dispersing energy, if you know how to work with its grain. My grandmother used to say that the best weapons are the ones that work with natural laws instead of against them." "Your grandmother sounds like she was a wise woman." "She was," Maya agreed, her hand moving unconsciously to her pendant. "She survived the resource wars on Earth, then, the early colonial expansion period. She knew what it meant to fight for survival when you had nothing but your own skills to rely on." Their conversation was interrupted by the announcement of the next round of matches. Maya's name appeared on the display again, this time paired against something called the Iron Reaper, described as an undefeated champion from the Outer Rim territories.
2 matches in one day? Thex Ironhide shook his head. "They're trying to wear you down quickly."
"Maybe," Maya said, studying her upcoming opponent's statistics. The Iron Reaper had won 47 consecutive matches and had never been forced to yield. Or maybe they're testing to see how I handle different types of opponents. The Iron Reaper turned out to be a massive robotic construct, easily 3 times Maya's height and armed with spinning blade arrays that could extend from its limbs.
Its armor was thick enough to stop anti-vehicle weapons, and its sensors covered the entire electromagnetic spectrum.
"This should be quick," the announcer declared as Maya stepped onto the arena floor with her simple wooden staff. "The Iron Reaper has never faced a human opponent, but we expect this to be over in under a minute." The crowd seemed to agree, and Maya could hear betting odds being called out in various alien languages. She was not the favorite.
The Iron Reaper activated with a mechanical roar, its blade arrays extending and beginning to spin.
It moved toward Maya with measured steps, each footfall leaving deep impressions in the sand.
Maya stood perfectly still, watching.
The construct fired its first volley of micromissiles when it reached optimal range. Maya had been expecting this. The attack pattern was standard for heavy combat units throughout the galaxy. She was already moving before the missiles left their tubes. The first missile passed close enough to singe her hair as she rolled under its trajectory. The second and third she avoided by simple changes in direction that required minimal energy expenditure. The fourth she knocked aside with her staff, sending it caroming into the arena wall. The Iron Reaper processed this data and adjusted its targeting parameters. It fired again, this time leading Maya's movement and using a spread pattern to limit her evasion options.
Maya responded by doing something that no combat algorithm expected. She ran directly toward the incoming missiles. The construct's targeting system tried to calculate a new intercept solution but couldn't process the irrational behavior quickly enough. Maya slipped between two missiles and used her staff to pole vault over a third, landing on the Iron Reaper's extended arm as its blade array spun inches from her face. The construct tried to shake her off, but Maya was already moving. She ran up the length of its arm, her feet finding purchase on armor joints and sensor nodes. When she reached the shoulder joint, she drove her staff deep into a gap between armor plates and pulled hard to one side. There was a grinding of metal and a shower of sparks as critical systems were damaged. The Iron Reaper's left arm went limp, its blade array spinning down to a stop. "Incredible," the announcer shouted. "She's found a weak point in the Reaper's armor." Maya wasn't finished. She pulled her staff free and swung across to the construct's back using a damaged sensor array as a handhold. The Iron Reaper spun in place, trying to dislodge her, but Maya rode the motion and used the centrifugal force to drive her staff into another armor gap. This time she hit something vital. The Iron Reaper's main power coupling sparked and began to overload. The massive construct shuddered and took a step backward as its systems began to fail. Maya dropped to the sand and rolled away as the Iron Reaper collapsed, its emergency shutdown systems preventing a catastrophic explosion that would have damaged the arena. The crowd was silent for nearly 10 seconds before exploding into cheers. Maya had just defeated two opponents in one day, both of them supposedly superior to her in every measurable way. "Winner, by technical knockout, Maya Chen," the announcer declared, his voice now carrying a note of genuine excitement. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications, I believe we may be witnessing the rise of a new arena legend." As Maya walked back to the staging area, she noticed that the VIP boxes were even more animated than before. Several wealthy-looking beings were gesturing toward her and speaking rapidly into communication devices. The attention was flattering, but it also meant complications. "You have gained sponsors," Gorvok observed as she rejoined the group. "Those beings in the boxes, they will offer you better equipment, medical care, training facilities. But they will also expect you to perform for their entertainment." Maya nodded, accepting another cup of water from a medical attendant. "I figured as much. How does the sponsorship system work?" "They bid on fighters they think will be entertaining," explained Whisperdeath. "The highest bidder gets to outfit you with whatever equipment they choose and take a percentage of any prize money you earn. Some sponsors are generous and want their fighters to succeed. Others just want to see interesting deaths. How do you tell the difference?" "You don't, until it's too late," Thex Ironhide said grimly. "I had a sponsor once who gave me defective armor because he thought it would be funny to watch me get torn apart by a Valdorian bloodbeast. What happened to him?" "I survived the match and tracked him down afterward," Thex replied with a cold smile. "He's not sponsoring fighters anymore." A messenger approached their group, a small, blue-skinned being with large, multifaceted eyes. "Maya Chen? You have received sponsorship offers. 3 of them, all quite generous." Maya accepted the datapad and reviewed the offers. The first was from a weapons manufacturer who wanted to showcase their newest energy staff designs. The second was from a medical technology company that specialized in combat enhancement drugs. The third was from something called the Natural Philosophy Foundation, which offered no equipment upgrades but promised complete medical support and freedom to use whatever fighting techniques she preferred. "The Natural Philosophy Foundation," Gorvok read over her shoulder. "I have heard of them. They sponsor fighters who use traditional or primitive fighting methods. Their fighters often do well because they're not dependent on technology that can malfunction." Maya thought about her grandmother's teachings, about the importance of working with natural laws instead of against them. "I'll take the third offer." "Are you certain?" the messenger asked. "The weapons manufacturer is offering some very advanced equipment." "I'm certain," Maya replied, signing the contract with her thumbprint. As the messenger scurried away to finalize the agreement, Maya settled back to watch the remaining matches of the day. She had survived her first day in the arena, but she knew this was just the beginning.
Tomorrow would bring new challenges, stronger opponents, and deadlier complications. But, for the first time since arriving at the Colosseum, Maya felt something that might have been hope. She had proven that skill and determination could overcome superior firepower and technology. She had shown the galaxy that humans were more than just another weak species struggling to survive. Most importantly, she had taken the first steps on the path that would lead her home to Sarah. The crowd was chanting her name now, thousands of beings from across the galaxy calling out for the human fighter who had surprised them all. Maya Chen, the smiling executioner, who fought with nothing but a wooden stick and refused to yield. As the arena lights dimmed and the day's matches came to an end, Maya closed her eyes and allowed herself a small smile. Her grandmother would have been proud. Tomorrow, she would show them what humans were really capable of. 3 weeks had passed since Maya's first match, and the Crimson Colosseum had never seen anything like her. What had started as routine entertainment for the galaxy's elite had transformed into something approaching a religious experience for the crowds. Every match was sold out, with beings traveling from systems hundreds of light years away just to witness the human fighter who had redefined what was possible in the arena. Maya sat in her upgraded quarters, examining the datapad that contained her match history. 17 fights, 17 victories. She had faced energy weapons specialists, cybernetic warriors, genetically enhanced supersoldiers, and even a collective consciousness that operated multiple bodies simultaneously. Each victory had been more decisive than the last, and her methods had evolved from surprising to incomprehensible to seemingly supernatural. The quarters themselves were a testament to her rising status. What had once been a simple cell was now a comfortable suite with proper furniture, a private training area, and windows that offered a view of the arena floor. The Natural Philosophy Foundation had kept their word about non-interference, providing excellent medical care while allowing Maya to develop her own techniques. "The crowds are calling you something new," Gorvok said from the doorway. The Krelian had become her closest friend among the fighters, and the only one who had survived as long as she had. His own fighting record was impressive, 12 wins and only 2 losses, but he was realistic about his chances of long-term survival. "What are they calling me now?" Maya asked, not looking up from her reading. "The Ghost Walker. They say you fight like someone who has already died and come back with knowledge from beyond." Gorvok settled into the chair across from her, his massive frame making the furniture creak. "There are betting pools on whether you're actually human or some kind of spirit wearing human form." Maya finally looked up, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "What do you think?" "I think you're the most dangerous being I've ever met," Gorvok replied seriously. "And I think you've been holding back." "What makes you say that?" Gorvok gestured toward the window, where they could see maintenance crews preparing the arena for the evening's matches. 17 victories, and you've never once looked like you were truly challenged. Even when you faced the hive mind fragment last week, you moved like you knew exactly what it was going to do before it did it. "Maybe I did," Maya said quietly. "That's what I'm afraid of." Gorvok leaned forward, his 4 eyes focusing intently on her face. "Maya, tomorrow you face the champion." Maya nodded. She had been expecting this announcement. The champion was the arena's ultimate fighter, undefeated in 312 matches over the past 15 years. Most fighters who faced the champion lasted less than 30 seconds. The longest match on record was 4 minutes and 17 seconds, and that fighter had been posthumously elevated to legendary status. Korafex the Destroyer, Maya read from her datapad. Vorthack cyborg enhanced with technology from a dozen different species. Stands 4 meters tall, weighs approximately 800 kilograms, armed with integrated weapon systems and powered armor that has never been breached. "You sound like you're reading a technical manual," Gorvok observed. "In a way, I am." Maya set down the datapad and moved to the window. Below them, the arena floor was being configured for tomorrow's championship match. Instead of the usual sand, they were installing modular terrain sections that could be raised or lowered during combat. Every opponent is a puzzle to be solved. You study their patterns, find their weaknesses, then exploit those weaknesses efficiently. And what if they don't have weaknesses? Maya turned back to him, and, for a moment Gorbok saw something in her eyes that made his warrior's instincts scream danger.
Everyone has weaknesses. The trick is understanding that sometimes the weakness isn't physical.
Before Gorbok could ask what she meant, a soft chime indicated an incoming visitor. Maya's door slid open to reveal a tall, elegant being in expensive robes. Her skin was a pale blue-green, and her elongated skull suggested she was from one of the elder races that had achieved spaceflight when humans were still discovering fire. Maya Chen, the visitor said, her voice carrying the musical quality typical of her species.
I am Sorrentha of the Celestial Council. May I speak with you? Gorbok stood immediately, recognizing the significance of the visit.
The Celestial Council oversaw most of the galaxy's major institutions, including the legal framework that had brought Maya to the arena in the first place.
I should leave you to speak privately.
No, Maya said firmly.
Stay.
Anything the council has to say to me can be said in front of my friend.
Sorrentha raised an eyebrow but didn't object.
She moved into the room with fluid grace and settled into a chair that adjusted automatically to accommodate her physiology.
Very well. I am here to offer you a proposition.
I'm listening, Maya said, returning to her own seat.
Your performance in the arena has been remarkable. Beyond remarkable, actually.
You have demonstrated capabilities that our xenobiologists assured us were impossible for an unenhanced human. This has caused considerable discussion among the council members.
Discussion about what?
About whether we made an error in our initial assessment of your case, Sorrentha replied carefully. The Galactic Council convicted you of excessive force, but your arena performance suggests that what we interpreted as brutality may have actually been precision. A fighter of your demonstrated abilities could have killed those pirates in dozens of different ways, many of them far more violent than what you actually did.
Maya said nothing, waiting for the council member to continue.
We are prepared to offer you immediate commutation of your sentence, Sorrentha said.
Full pardon, cleared record, and transport back to your daughter's location.
All you have to do is withdraw from tomorrow's championship match. The offer hung in the air like a physical thing. Gorbok could see the longing in Maya's eyes, the desperate desire to accept and go home to the child she had fought so hard to protect.
What's the catch? Maya asked finally. No catch, Sorrentha replied.
Simply an acknowledgement that perhaps we judged you too harshly and a desire to correct that error.
And if I refuse?
Then, you face Korathex tomorrow, with all the risks that entails.
Sorrentha's expression was carefully neutral. The champion has never lost, Maya. Not once in 312 matches. The odds of your survival are essentially zero. Maya stood and walked back to the window.
The arena floor was nearly finished being reconfigured, and she could see the champion's preparation chamber being stocked with ammunition and power cells. Tomorrow would be the most dangerous day of her life, and she knew it. But she also knew something else.
Tell me, Maya said without turning around, how many beings are watching my matches now? What's the current viewership across the galaxy? Sorrentha looked confused by the change of subject.
The broadcasts reach approximately 400 billion beings across 2,000 systems.
Your matches have become the most watched entertainment programming in galactic history. And what are they seeing when they watch me fight? I'm not certain I understand the question. Maya turned back to face them both. They're seeing a human.
A small, female human with no cybernetic enhancements, no genetic modifications, no powered weapons. And they're watching her defeat opponents that should be completely beyond her capabilities.
Yes, Sorrentha said slowly. What do you think that does to the galaxy's perception of humans as a species? Maya asked. What does it do to the confidence of other humans who have been told they're weak, inferior, barely qualified for citizenship in the galactic community? Gorbok's eyes widened as he began to understand what Maya was really fighting for.
You're not just fighting for your own freedom, he breathed.
You're fighting for your entire species' place in the galaxy. Maya nodded.
Every human colony that's been pushed around by stronger races is watching these matches. Every human child who's been told they'll never amount to anything is seeing that maybe the galaxy was wrong about what we're capable of.
That's a noble goal, Sorrentha said carefully, but it's not worth dying for. Take the pardon, go home to your daughter. Let someone else worry about humanity's reputation. My daughter is human too, Maya replied.
When she grows up, do I want her to live in a galaxy where her species is respected, or one where we're treated as barely sentient pets? Every choice I make now affects the world she'll inherit.
Sorrentha sighed, a sound like wind through crystal chimes. I was afraid you would say something like that.
Very well, but I must warn you, there are forces at work here beyond what you see in the arena. The champion's sponsors have invested heavily in maintaining his undefeated status. They will not allow you to simply outfight him as you have your previous opponents.
Meaning?
The match will not be fair. They will stack the deck against you in every way the rules allow, and, possibly in some ways they don't.
Maya considered this information. Thank you for the warning. Is there anything else?
Only this, Sorrentha said, rising from her chair. If by some miracle you do defeat Korathex, you will not be allowed to simply return home.
An undefeated human arena champion would be too powerful a symbol.
There will be other challenges, other battles.
This path you're choosing leads to a lifetime of conflict.
Maybe, Maya agreed. Or maybe it leads to a galaxy where my daughter can walk tall and proud because everyone knows what humans are really capable of. After Sorrentha left, Maya and Gorvok sat in comfortable silence for several minutes. Outside, the binary suns were setting, casting the arena in shades of gold and crimson.
Are you afraid? Gorvok asked finally. Terrified, Maya admitted. But not of dying. I'm afraid of failing.
Of letting down every human who's watching tomorrow, every child who's hoping to see someone like them prove that we belong among the stars. The weight of an entire species, Gorvok mused.
That's a heavy burden for one person to carry.
It doesn't have to be, Maya said, turning to look at him. I've been thinking about what you said before, about sponsors and the way this place works. The champion has been undefeated for 15 years because he's been carefully protected. But, protection can become a weakness if you rely on it too heavily.
What do you mean? Maya smiled, and Gorvok saw something predatory in her expression. Korathex has never faced an opponent who understood the real game being played here. He's been fighting gladiator matches while I've been studying warfare.
Tomorrow, I'm going to teach him the difference. The next morning dawned clear and bright, both suns rising together to cast stark shadows across the arena. The crowds had been gathering since before dawn, and the noise was already deafening. Maya could hear the excitement and anticipation in their voices, a sound like the ocean before a storm. She dressed in the simple gray uniform that had become her trademark, refusing the ornate costumes that many fighters preferred. The wooden staff leaned against the wall where she had left it the night before, worn smooth by weeks of use but still perfectly functional. A soft knock at her door announced the arrival of her escort. Instead of the usual guards, a full ceremonial honor guard had been assigned for the championship match. They wore polished armor and carried energy weapons, more for show than security. "Ready, champion challenger?" asked the guard captain, a professional soldier whose eyes showed grudging respect.
"Ready," Maya replied, picking up her staff. The walk to the arena took longer than usual, winding through corridors lined with the portraits of previous champions.
Korathex's image appeared multiple times, showing him in various poses of victory over defeated opponents. In every picture, he looked exactly the same, an unnatural consistency that suggested his cybernetic enhancements had eliminated aging and wear. The staging area was filled with arena officials, medical personnel, and media representatives from across the galaxy. Maya's matches were now broadcast live to hundreds of worlds, and the championship bout had drawn coverage that normally reserved for major political events.
"Final equipment check," announced the Master Armorer. "Maya-chan, do you wish to change your weapon selection? We can offer you any equipment in our inventory."
"I'm fine with what I have," Maya replied, testing the staff's balance one more time.
"Are you certain?"
The champion's integrated weapons systems include plasma cannons, micromissile launchers, and molecular disruptor fields.
A wooden stick may not provide adequate defense. Maya looked at the armorer with that same gentle smile that had become her trademark. It's not about the weapon. It's about the warrior. The announcer's voice boomed across the arena as the opening ceremonies began.
Maya could hear him recounting her previous victories, building excitement for what he called the match of the millennium. When her name was called, she stepped through the gate into blinding artificial sunlight and the roar of 400,000 beings. The arena had been transformed for the championship match. Multiple levels of terrain stretched across the floor, creating a three-dimensional battlefield with cliffs, valleys, and hidden passages. Weapon caches were scattered throughout the landscape, and environmental hazards ranged from energy fields to automated defense turrets. Across the arena, a massive gate began to open. Steam hissed from hidden vents as Korathex the Destroyer made his entrance. He was even larger than Maya had expected, a towering fusion of organic and mechanical components that moved with terrifying grace. His armor was black as space and seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Integrated weapons systems tracked constantly, marking potential targets and calculating firing solutions. The crowd fell silent as the champion took his position, his presence so imposing that even veteran arenagoers felt intimidated. For 15 years, this being had been the ultimate expression of combat effectiveness, the pinnacle of what technology and enhancement could achieve. Maya stood across from him with her simple staff, looking tiny by comparison. But there was something in her posture, a quality of stillness and readiness, that made some spectators lean forward in anticipation. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of all classifications," the announcer's voice thundered. "Welcome to the championship match of the Crimson Coliseum. In this corner, the undefeated, undisputed champion, Korathex the Destroyer." The crowd erupted as the champion raised all four of his mechanical arms in acknowledgement. Energy fields crackled between his fingers, and targeting lasers painted red dots across the arena walls. And, in this corner, the challenger who has taken the galaxy by storm, Maya Chen, the Ghostwalker. The responding cheer was different from what Korathex was used to, less fear and bloodlust, more hope and genuine excitement. For the first time in years, the crowd actually believed there might be a contest instead of an execution. "Combatants, prepare for battle," the announcer called. "This match begins now." Korathex immediately engaged his targeting systems and fired a full spread of micromissiles, designed to saturate the area around Maya and leave her no room to dodge. It was the same opening move he had used in 312 previous matches, and it had never failed to achieve at least a crippling hit. Maya was already moving before the missiles launched, flowing up the nearest terrain feature like smoke rising from a fire. The missiles impacted where she had been standing, turning sand and stone into a crater of fused glass. The champion tracked her movement and fired his plasma cannons, twin beams of superheated energy that could melt through starship hull plating. Maya dropped behind a ridgeline as the plasma seared the air above her head. For the next several minutes, the match followed a predictable pattern. Korathex would fire devastating barrages of energy weapons while Maya used the terrain to avoid them, always staying just ahead of the destruction. To most observers, it looked like the champion was methodically hunting down a trapped opponent. But Gorvok, watching from the staging area, noticed something that others missed. Maya wasn't just dodging randomly. She was leading Korathex through a specific pattern of movement, forcing him to position himself exactly where she wanted him. "She's hurting him," Gorvok breathed, understanding dawning in his eyes. On the arena floor, Maya completed her circuit of the terrain and found herself back near her starting position. Korathex had followed her path precisely, his massive frame now standing directly over the crater his first missile barrage had created. "Enough running," the champion's amplified voice boomed across the arena. "Face me like a warrior." Maya stopped moving and turned to face him directly. For the first time since the match began, she was completely exposed with no cover between them. Korathex's targeting systems immediately locked onto her and prepared to fire every weapon simultaneously. "You're right," Maya called back, her voice somehow carrying clearly despite the distance between them. "It's time to fight like a warrior."
She planted her staff in the ground and vaulted toward him. Korathex fired everything. Plasma beams, micromissiles, energy bursts, molecular disruptor fields, enough firepower to level a city block converged on the small human figure sailing through the air. Maya passed through the barrage like she was made of light itself, twisting and spinning to slip between energy beams that missed her by millimeters. Her grandmother's training had taught her to feel the flow of energy around her, to sense the patterns that governed all movement and motion. She landed on Korathex's shoulder as his weapons cycled for a second volley. Before he could react, Maya drove her staff deep into the junction where his helmet connected to his armor's power supply. There was a brilliant flash and a sound like thunder as critical systems overloaded. Korathex's weapons went offline and his targeting systems failed, leaving him temporarily blinded and defenseless. But Maya wasn't finished. As the champion staggered from the system failure, she ran down the length of his arm and struck again, this time targeting the neural interface that controlled his enhanced reflexes. Another shower of sparks, another critical system failure. Korathex swung at her with his massive fist, but, without his enhanced coordination, the blow was clumsy and predictable. Maya flowed around it and struck the joint where his arm connected to his torso. Servo screamed in protest as the limb went limp. Impossible, Korathex growled, his voice distorted by static from his damaged systems. You cannot defeat me. I am perfection incarnate. No, Maya said, dropping to the arena floor and backing away as the champion turned to face her. You're just a bully with expensive toys. She gestured to the crater beneath his feet, the fused glass that his own weapons had created. And you never learned to watch where you're standing. Maya struck the ground with her staff, and the weakened crater collapsed. Korathex, off balance from his damaged systems and, suddenly, unsupported terrain, toppled into the pit his own weapons had carved. The fall wouldn't have been enough to seriously damage him under normal circumstances, but Maya had been precise in her targeting. His balance systems were offline, his enhanced reflexes non-functional, and his power distribution network compromised. The champion landed hard at the bottom of the crater, his massive weight driving him deep into the loose sand and rubble. When he tried to stand, his damaged systems caused him to stumble and fall again. Maya appeared at the edge of the pit, looking down at him with that same gentle smile she had worn throughout their encounter. Yield, she said quietly. Never, Korathex snarled, raising his one functional arm. I am the champion. I do not yield to inferior beings. Then, you've learned nothing from this, Maya said sadly. She leaped down into the crater and struck again, this time targeting the champion's main power core. I'm not defeating you because I'm stronger or faster or better equipped. I'm defeating you because I understand something you never learned. What? Korathex demanded, his voice growing weaker as his power levels dropped. That every strength can become a weakness if you rely on it too heavily, Maya replied. You became so dependent on your technology that you forgot how to think like a warrior. You became so confident in your superiority that you stopped paying attention to your environment. She struck one final time, shutting down his life support systems with surgical precision. And you became so focused on destroying your opponent that you never considered the possibility that they might be smarter than you. Korathex collapsed, his massive form finally still. The arena was silent except for the sound of settling debris and the distant hum of the crowd's collective breathing. Maya climbed out of the crater and walked to the center of the arena. She raised her simple wooden staff above her head and looked up at the hundreds of thousands of beings watching from the stands. Winner and new champion, the announcer's voice cracked with excitement. Maya Chen, the Ghost Walker. The crowd exploded into noise that could be heard from orbit. Beings of every species were on their feet, cheering for the small human female who had just accomplished the impossible. But Maya wasn't looking at them. She was looking at the cameras that were broadcasting this moment to 400 billion beings across the galaxy. To every human colony, every human child, every human who had ever been told they didn't belong among the stars. Maya Chen smiled and spoke directly into the cameras, her voice somehow carrying over the roar of the crowd. This is for Sarah, and for every human child who dreams of touching the stars. This is for everyone who has ever been told they're too small, too weak,
too insignificant to matter.
This is proof that strength isn't about size or technology or enhancement.
It's about heart and determination and the willingness to fight for what you love. She lowered her staff and walked toward the exit, but stopped when she reached the edge of the arena floor. Looking back at the defeated champion and then up at the crowd, she added one final thought.
And this is just the beginning. 3 months later, Maya Chen stood on the observation deck of a passenger liner bound for New Shanghai Colony. Through the viewport, she could see her destination growing larger as they approached.
Somewhere on that world, her daughter was waiting. The Galactic Council had indeed offered her freedom after defeating Korathex, but on their terms, with restrictions and conditions.
Maya had declined.
Instead, she had claimed her rights as arena champion, including the traditional offer of continued employment as the Colosseum's primary attraction. She had used that position to negotiate for something unprecedented, the right to select her own opponents and set the terms of her matches. More importantly, she had gained a platform that reached across the galaxy. Her matches had become teaching moments, demonstrations of human capability that were watched by billions. She had faced the best fighters from every major species and defeated them all, not through superior technology or genetic enhancement, but through skill, intelligence, and sheer determination.
The galaxy's perception of humanity had undergone a complete transformation.
Human colonies that had been pushed around for generations suddenly found their neighbors treating them with newfound respect. Human children grew up believing they could be anything they wanted to be, that their species belonged among the stars. And Maya Chen, the smiling executioner, the ghost walker, the human champion, was finally going home. The ship's intercom crackled to life. All passengers, we are beginning final approach to New Shanghai Colony.
Local time is 14:30 standard. Welcome to your destination.
Maya gathered her small bag and her faithful wooden staff. After everything she had been through, everything she had accomplished, the only things that truly mattered were waiting for her on the planet below. Sarah would be 12 now, probably taller and more grown up than Maya could imagine. She would have questions about what had happened, about the choice her mother had made and the price they had both paid for it.
Maya was ready to answer those questions.
She was ready to explain that sometimes the most important battles aren't the ones you fight for yourself, but the ones you fight for the people you love. That sometimes you have to risk everything, you have to protect everything you care about. As the ship descended through the atmosphere, Maya closed her eyes and felt her grandmother's presence one last time. The old woman's lessons had carried her through the darkest moments of the arena, had given her the strength to stand against impossible odds and emerge victorious. But, more than that, they had taught her that true strength comes not from what you can do to your enemies, but from what you're willing to sacrifice for your family. The ship touched down with barely a tremor, and Maya Chen walked toward the exit ramp. Somewhere beyond the airlock, her daughter was waiting. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity, human children could dream of greatness without limitation, and a mother was finally coming home.
Maya stepped into the sunlight of New Shanghai Colony and smiled. It was good to be human. It was good to be home.